show these suckers how to ball out here. Oh, man, let me get this together here. Oh, layup. Oh, no. Shot. Oh, three. Oh, it's like Brick City out here. Mid-range. Oh, my goodness. I can't buy a bucket out here. I missed the whole damn basket. Oh, my goodness. What's going on, man? My game is looking trash. Oh, here we go. Black Power Media shirt. Now we cooking. Tree. I'm taking on three of y'all with these right here. Between the legs. Oh, my goodness. Behind the back. Layup. Oh, and did he just do a reverse? He is in beast mode out here. I ain't got to look. It's falling. Oh, my goodness. This guy is going 3, 2, 1. Kobe. Nice. Black Power Media, baby. Nice. Empower yourself. Go get you some of that Black Power Media again. Right here, blackpowermedia.org. Yeah.
I mix what I like. Hey, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here, Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be back with you as your host, holding it down for our boom bap breakfasts. Do all of the things, like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, support the Patreon, blackpowermedia.org. As you saw from the ear doctor, get you some of that good merch. You know what I mean? Support what we're doing. Got more announcements regarding projects coming. So on and so on and so on and so on. If you want to be in touch, got a show suggestion or whatever, blackpowermedia.org. Again, contact us. It's very easy. Again, once more, welcome everybody. Greetings to those who are here live, those who are seeing this later. Peace and welcome to you as well. At 9 o'clock, we're going to be joined by the All African People's Revolutionary Party's Zizwe Tchiguka to talk about today being the anniversary, as it's known, that fateful day that Kwame Ture, Mukasa Ricks, the people struggling throughout the Black community demanded and pushed and advanced the call for Black Power. So today we're going to talk about From Black Power to Pan-Africanism, which is, of course, titled one of Ture's speeches and sort of the overarching philosophy with which he worked. And we want to continue to promote and encourage here as well. But until then, we got a number of things to get to. Unfortunately, brothers Geechee and Diallo, unfortunately for us, they're not able to join us this morning. Fortunately for them and their families, they are engaged in that work, in that business, in that fun, in that life. So they'll be back with us next week. And when possible. So again, in the interim, we'll do the best we can. I'll do the best I can to hold it down on my own. Please do support all the shows popping up, all the programs, all the clips, all the videos. Encourage people to check them out as well. Again, if you can't support the channel financially, we get it, but likes and shares and social media hits, all that stuff is helpful as well. So, all right. So a couple things to get to this morning in advance of Zizwe coming through. So a comrade reached out the other day once again and asked about, and I can't help but get a kick out of this, but oh, by the way, I'm rocking the red, black and on white BPM shirt this morning. So behind me over here, just real quick, shout out to, I just dug out some of the album covers from my life that I still had left in terms of the vinyl. So you got everybody from, although it's unfortunate, and I kind of, anyway, got the Fresh Prince over there. You got Chuck Brown over there. You got Curtis Mayfield over there. You got my Pink Floyd section with Dark Side of the Moon and the wall right there. You got Dougie Fresh over there. You got Schoolie D is, I think that's right there. The Police, right there. You got Richie Havens, Hugh Masekela, right there. Big Daddy Kane, Lean on Me soundtrack. That's why I got it, at least the Big Daddy Kane. So anyway, but I was asked about this poster again for the Buying Power book, and I was asked, where did I get it? How did I do it? And I don't remember. I just googled something, and but the reason I did it is what makes me laugh so much, because admittedly, given all the drama I was having with former colleagues at the university, who had forced me back into where I had tried to escape from, where I had tried to escape. I said, well, if I got to be here, I'm going to show out on the door. And at least every day they're going to have to look at this poster on the door. Just like a symbolic slap in the face. And of course, COVID hit. And in the interim, I was moved happily, I think, for everybody, back over to Black Studies and the College of Liberal Arts. And but I keep laughing about it because I did intend, it was a petty gesture on my part to be like, look, you all, I mean, it's not really petty in my context, you know what I mean? Like, you all really did me dirty, and I still persevered. So everybody's gonna have to look at this big ass door sign. But the point that I'm getting at is, just like I'm arguing in that work, and more broadly speaking, is something we're going to come back to in just a minute. Symbolism, individual activity is always insufficient. So my individual symbolic action was easily taken over by their having political power. So they were like, cool, you want to do the symbolic gesture of putting something on your door? Well, we'll just take away the whole door. So I can't get mad when I'm out hated on like that. Like, I have to, on some level, I appreciate the game, and for whatever I might think of myself and joke about being petty, that's the real petty. They were like, they took away the whole door. You can't even be in this building anymore. Oh man. So I was like, I gotta, that's gangster. So but sort of to that point, taking it to a step, a step beyond, I did want to play a clip that was just posted on our channel the other day, part of a discussion between Dhoruba Bin-Wahad and Kalonji Changa, and on his Riot Starter show. And I just want to play the little bit of this clip. I actually watched the whole thing with my daughters the other day, and it was great. It was just great. It led to a very fruitful conversation. But I'm only going to play it for the very introductory part of the very initial comments made by Dhoruba in talking with Kalonji about where we need and what we need to be headed to, and given some what I think are some interesting and kind of somewhat comical developments over the last couple of days. I thought this would be interesting. So with that segue of a need for political power, let's just watch a quick few seconds of this here.
So I think what we need to do now at this particular, we need to embark on a campaign between now and the 2024 election of purging ourselves of Black misleadership. I think that we have to go after them. We have to disgrace them. We have to drag them from power, and we have to form our own independent political and social networks so that we could run our own candidates, so that we could begin to put on the referendum bills on the local referendums that address our needs. We need to really, really wage war against the Black misleadership class. These niggas are out of control.
I want to add something real quick, because oftentimes, we need clarity, and folks are not quite clear about what you mean when you talk about leadership by victimhood. I think that one of the things that we forget, in many cases, I think there's been a there's been situations where we've lost loved ones, and you have people stand up speaking on behalf of those loved ones, but it's not a concrete analysis. They're speaking from emotion and pain opposed to what the overall picture is about.
But most, but you know, I don't want to cut you off, Kalonji, but most of the victims of police murder are apolitical. They weren't activists in the movement. They weren't trying to liberate Black folks. They were just living their lives and going about trying to struggle through the best as they could. And so their life was taken from them by these police and by these fascists. And the family is now thrust into the spotlight, you know, to explain this loss. And they can't explain it because they don't have an analysis. So who comes along? The Crumps come along. You know, this Negro ain't won a case since 1922. He comes along. You see, the Sharptons come along because they know that they look at the media, they see Crump talking on the media.
Vultures.
And so they say, well, we need a family law. Let's call him. You see? And so they just perpetrate the idea and the notion of victimhood. Okay, it's one thing to understand that people who have lost their loved ones and have their children murdered, this is a deeply traumatic experience for anybody. And I know how I would feel if I lost my children like this. So this is a deeply traumatic experience, but it doesn't mean that qualifies me as to call the shots for a movement, to talk about when we should demonstrate, how we should demonstrate, what manner of protests we should carry out. I mean, you had these folks come up right after their loved one is murdered talking about let the prosecution run its course and let's not burn down anything. And you're supposed to burn down everything. Anything that these crackers own, you're supposed to burn that shit down. Okay, if they on CNN, burn it down. They don't want us just determining the parameters of the debate. Burn that shit down. Put some fire up under Joy Reid's drawers and run her funky ass out of there. Okay, we need to do these things. We need not follow the leadership of people who have suffered the loss of their child, the loss of their loved ones, and now they're thrust into the public spotlight. What are they supposed to say?
All right, so I encourage everybody to definitely go and watch the whole clip and then watch the whole interview multiple times, even if you haven't already. That was really the point about the misleadership and our overall engagement with the political establishment, however that's to be defined, has to be changed. And those doing this, the speaking on behalf of Black people, of oppressed people, of working people, of whoever the group is, women, LGBTQ, nearly all of the promoted spokespeople for all of these groups drag the conversation into some narrow and conservative and fruitless place. And many of them, much like, and this is sort of the parallel I wanted to draw, much like the victims of police violence, the surviving members of the families, that is, many of the promoted spokespeople who end up taking the mic in the camera space, they don't have a background of certainly radical grassroots political struggle. They don't have a background of commitment to revolution and revolutionary change or whatever. They are brought up either, if at anything, through, again, remember even how Barack Obama was promoted initially as a grassroots activist coming out of very neoliberal nonprofit communities. That's sort of the best we can expect at this point. The same is for many of the pundits, many of the of course, activist leadership, many of the journalists who get a lot of the mic and camera time. Again, why I'm very happy to be working with BPM. Produce the overlay, the cloud through which we all have to sort of walk through and work through intellectually to get to the kind of analyses that we need to move forward. So whether it's the misleadership class, well, the misleadership class, I think, applies across the board, and similarly is created and situated politically. So again, sort of as a segue into a couple of other things this morning, I just wanted to emphasize that again, and it was great to hear Dhoruba even mentioning that again, that there has to be a new organized formation. We have to have our own political parties or organizations that engage these spaces, whether they're electoral or otherwise, with a different kind of clarity and organization. If we want to see anything different change, just a couple of things I saw. They took the door. They did sun me when they took the door. They took away the door. That's it. There is no door. That's what we all have to realize. There is no door. It is amazing to think, right, that there could be people out here who would hate on me. Clutch my pearls. It is. I do have diverse musical taste. Absolutely. And I will say, a lot of that musical diversity, and again, I haven't looked closely. I'll come back to the comments in a little bit and see what you all have to say. And if at some point I should just look more at myself, but I haven't looked at a lot of the new digital music packaging as it's released. And so I don't know to what extent the tradition of liner notes has carried over. But a lot of my musical diversity, not only starting obviously with my background or household, but beyond even just the world we live in, a lot of that diversity was actually encouraged through reading liner notes on hip hop albums, rap albums, and seeing where all the samples came from. And it was amazing. So I got put on, for instance, as much as some of the kids I ran around with briefly in high school, it was Ali Shaheed Muhammad and Q-Tip sampling Led Zeppelin, and now I can't even remember, but like that introduced me, for instance, or encouraged me to think it okay to listen to Led Zeppelin, and I'm glad I did. They're dope. And then you come to find out John Bonham, the drummer, his favorite musician was James Brown, and a lot of his drumming he tried to mimic or get, like a lot of the syncopation he got in his drumming came from Clyde Stubblefield and all of them. But I didn't learn that. So again, the same way a lot of us are introduced to Jimi Hendrix through the experience and have to go back later to find out about the Band of Gypsies. So that anyway, I could go on for days about that, but anyway. They're safe. They're safely stowed. The vinyl is safe. Don't worry. And thank you for that concern. That's important. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can't imagine that would be so I wonder what would happen if your complaint was their display of the American flag was as disturbing, Right on time, Emma, because there is a little bit of this that I wanted to talk about. I don't know exactly how Reginald Middleton and everybody are doing, specifically as cryptocurrency has dropped even again as of 2:00 this morning. Bitcoin is down another 4, almost 5%. But what I have noticed, and this is what I'll use as a segue to get to this next item that I did want to get to. Although, you know what? I didn't finish the other one. All right, let me finish this other point, and then I'll come back to that, because there's more on this politics point that I wanted to come back to. So anyway, sorry about that distraction. I'll double back that in a second. So anyway, this point about that Dhoruba's getting to that I want to piggyback off of again about differently engaging the political space. And I do want to come back to this issue of the after party idea. But I noticed that there's been a little bit of a discussion lately of, and I happened to catch, I was up early this morning and caught a little bit of the live stream on Doom and Gloom, and they were talking about this over there. And then I didn't watch the video, but I've seen in the scroll, I've seen a number of Black media hosts talking about this. And for a time, I had even been somewhat paying attention to the developments over here at the Movement for a People's Party. But I noticed that my favorite one of my former favorite white hosts for a time, JimmyDore, is being asked to run for president on the Movement for a People's Party ticket. And it's being argued here by, I'm assuming this is Nick Brana, the head of this party. I'm not going to read too much of this, but it's being argued here in this piece. And on Doom and Gloom, they really went through this whole thing much more carefully. That the argument is that JimmyDore is popular. In fact, they argue he's the most famous and popular comedian to consider running for president. And I can't remember who said this first, but I thought of it at the same time immediately when I first heard someone make that claim. But of course, this is because folks don't, in this, Jimmy's crowd doesn't know anything about Dick Gregory. And excuse my neighbor's dog if that's registering. But of course, they don't remember Dick Gregory in terms of the most famous comedian, and certainly in terms of better comedians. Although I don't think Jimmy is untalented, and I don't think he's unfunny. Although I have not watched his show although I don't want to get corrected again, I have not watched in many, many months now. But but I did see this story and I thought it was interesting. And I thought it was interesting that at one point they shout out the people who are supporting this, and they're talking about the sort of the celebrity activists support for all this. And of course, yeah, here we go. His campaign, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Now I can't find where that went. His campaign could be even more incredible potentially with figures like Chris Hedges, Cornel West, Susan Sarandon, Anya Parampil, Max Blumenthal, Chris Smalls, Medea Benjamin, Jackson Hinkle, Richard Wolff, and Aaron Mate joining him on the road, and in what is sure to be the most revolutionary White House cabinet in the history of this country. So, with all respect to the names mentioned, anyway, even if there was potential for this to work, this would not be the most revolutionary group we could put together by far. But and it would not have been even close to the cabinet I was putting together in 2008 for my Green Party run, or who would have been on the cabinet for Cynthia and Rosa had they won. But anyway, but the first thing I noticed in all this, in all respect to Chris Smalls, Cornel West is really the only Black political activist that I think that they legitimately take seriously beyond Chris Small's popular and righteous work with Amazon right now. Traditionally, Cornel West is really the only one that this kind of group out of the Black community, this group really sort of respects. And again, I just have to encourage people to go back and watch the interview we did with Dr. West a few months ago, where it is truly an interview unlike anyone had ever seen with him. And is I think an important reminder of the different political spaces that we represent here at BPM, and why I think so much of the work at BPM is not overlapped or paralleled or invited into some of these spaces, despite what might seem to be, apparent overlaps politically, et cetera, and so forth. But anyway, I'll encourage people to check out Doom and Gloom for more of a real breakdown and conversation about this campaign. I was only interested in it for the fact, or potential campaign for the claim, the invitation to JimmyDore to run on the Movement for People's Party ticket for president in 2024, and the associated names referenced as, I think, representative of the sort of the political space that this campaign would mean to represent. Now, yeah, that's I think that's yeah. But what it reminded me of was, once again, because included in the claim, or in the call for Dore to run, is the accurate, I think, understanding that that the two-party system is damaged, likely beyond any repair. It is, that something else is needed, that something that represents more of the interests of more of the people is needed. But when I saw that list of names, and again, no disrespect to Chris Smalls, but I think that there is that. Anyway, when I see that list of names, and see Cornel West as the really the one that is always brought back into those spaces to represent Black politics or inclusivity or diversity, it reminded me again of what sort of another version of what Dhoruba was saying in the initial clip, that because even in that formation, the politics of certainly those represented on this channel are not really going to be included. The people from the communities represented on this channel are not really going to be included. And I'm not convinced that even that group is willing to go far enough in advancing a political agenda that truly does represent not just those of us on this channel who admittedly are at a certain, distant radical left, but of many within world majority communities, that is Black, brown, working people communities. And again, it's another invitation to Black people to engage electoral politics as a sort of a disaggregated minority. So I want to again just quickly advocate for the after party approach. And again, I like the name primarily just because of what the after party always seems to represent, at least if not live up to. That is being better than whatever it exists in terms of any party structure. And just very quickly, that it's Black led, or at least world majority led, Black, brown, so-called people of color. And whether it's an actual party or considered as a block, like again, if this was something that folks wanted to do within this even Movement for People's Party endeavor, or a Green Party, or whoever else, that it engage, that is engage as a block that has already established a political platform and an agenda that starts with, again, this is not even the most revolutionary project, but just starts with a focus on redistribution of the wealth that we all contribute to. At this point, it's even increased, I believe, lately to over $20 trillion, so that all of our commercial activity, all of our bill paying, all of the work we perform produces this wealth. So we should just start there and say, we got 20 trillion a year. How do we not have the basics like a universal health care, Medicare for all, whatever you want to call it? You turn 18, you're covered. Full stop. Abolition, dual power, community control of police, however that's to be worked out and engaged, that be on the platform. And the point again being, these are the baseline political standards or tenets or platform agenda items that any candidate we are expected to support would have to adopt. And this could be applied in local elections as well as national elections. As Max Rameau has said, and I was referencing something he said, I think a year ago, that this is just a phase one, a step one in convincing people that this is possible and necessary, that a new level of organization is necessary, a new level of engagement in what we know many are going to do, and many are not, for reasons that are understandable. That is, we know many in our community are going to go pull a lever, so to speak, push a button for some candidate at some point, but largely on the basis of it's not the worst of evils, not on some aggressive, assertive agenda. We know many more are not going to do that at all. And I know that the JimmyDore campaign is arguing this similar and very, this traditional among the left and others in the margins about electoral politics, that most people don't vote. So if we could capture them, we have the biggest political party. But again, we don't want them. We don't want to just say. We don't want to argue with people who are clear and correct that their vote in the current arrangement does not lead to legitimate change. We don't want them to engage that system. We want them to engage on the basis of what we're advocating here. And obviously there's a lot more that would have to be worked out. But again, I just want to just bring this back up. So again, as Max has said, this is phase one. That is the laying the groundwork to say, look, this is something that we need. We've known we've needed it. We've tried it before. There's historical precedent for it. There are organizations and parties and groups all over the country that are attempting this in one form or another. We just need to support them and organize with them. The Dope Afrofuturist has already created the logo. I understood I was in one conversation where they objected to the red, white, and blue being in there, but I thought the irony of it was pretty funny. Both parties are depicted as dead. We want the after party, but I get it. And ultimately with the understanding that the goal is political power, that we don't want just symbolism. We don't want voting for the lessers of evil. We don't want jobs. We don't want a minimum wage. We, obviously these things are necessary. What we're saying is the point I'm getting at is that we want power. We want political power. And I think given where we're going in about 20 or so minutes and talking about Black power and Kwame Ture and the All African People's Revolutionary Party and beyond, that's a sort of standard that I'm picking up from him and them. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly do that part. That was really all I wanted to really say about that. But that because I get it, whatever anyone, myself included, thinks of JimmyDore or any of those folks involved, I get the impulse to develop an alternative political endeavor. And in general, I agree with it. I just don't want us to engage it or anything else on that without the after party concept in it, initially, and again, this is what I think, not what I think, this is what Malcolm X said about engaging electoral politics. So I think at bare minimum, it's a way to do it anyway. So I'll make sure in the show description links to my other videos where I'm more fully engaged. This after party concept are there, and we'll continue to come back to it. I want to keep advocating it as much as possible, but For now, let's take a quick pause and come back and get into a couple other things before we get to Kwame Ture. Don't go anywhere. Back. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, everybody. Thanks again, and please do continue to comment and both in the live chat now and then later on in the comment section, because I do certainly come back to them and want to address them at some point, if not right now, and at some point in the future. Also would like to even just do more full segments and shows just responding to comments and inviting people to join, step on the stage if they'd like to raise something themselves. But anyway, a couple other things just so I did not know this, but in all of our focus, including in what I'll put in the show notes again, my favorite, the first episode of Academics and Cars, where we got immediately Dr. Haight and I and Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows saw the movie together, got in the car, created the first Academics and Cars as a review of the Black Panther film, Marvel, Disney's Black Panther movie. But I did not know that in all of our attention to that apparently there was an alt-right use of the film that started with a lot of, I just happened to see a video about this yesterday, and I'm not going to get, when I go, obviously watch much of it or any of it, but I just wanted to I just thought it was interesting because apparently the alt-right was saying that they agreed with the premise of Wakanda and were finding it interesting that Donald Trump promoting a basic politics that are found in Wakanda got him in trouble among the left, but was praised when in a depicted as a fictitious African country. And of course, by that they meant the creation of a wall that kept out immigrants, that nationalized its resources, that they falsely claim that protected its nationality, that what else were they saying? I guess those were the basic ones. Of course, they got wrong that Wakanda was actually comprised of, what was it, 5 or 6 different nations. That was one obvious error. But the reason I thought it was interesting was that on some level that was my own criticism of Wakanda. That's why it was to be criticized, that it was too much like an alt-right conservative country, and that's why I said Killmonger was right. So again, just to bring up the point that even when there's overlapping points with obviously somebody, a group as fringe and lunatic as the alt-right, well, not fringe necessarily, but as far off as the alt-right from where I am. But even within our own communities and spaces, there's a lot of confusion still around conservative, Black capitalist, narrow nationalist arguments. So I just thought that was funny. The other thing from the entertainment world, and shout out to Chris Kager, who was asking me about this, as the season of the show TheOffer just wrapped up, which is about the making of the film The Godfather, which I thought was just great. The film, the original The Godfather, I thought was fantastic. Yes, the racism and all of that. That to me does not take away from the quality of the film. I like my white movies, to be honest, about Black people. Don't have any Black people in there unless they are background servants like Tony with the horses. Remember, Brother Tony's the one. And I think, I hope it worked this way. I hope the brother playing Tony, he speaks one line in the scene. I think he says something like, "Sure, boss," or "Yes," or something. And I feel like, I hope the actor did that on purpose, just to get himself on tape, to get that actor credit. Because I think once you get a speaking part, you get bumped up. But I like that they do that. And then they, of course they say keep the drugs with the N words and all this other kind of stuff. I like when my white films do that. I don't want the phony inclusion of black folks, and I definitely don't want the upside down and twisted depiction of black folks that is often the case. Again, the Vernon philosophy of black media avoidance. But the making of it was, I thought, fantastic and very interesting and a fun watch. But there's a clip in it. There's a scene in this, this is not a spoiler. There's a scene in the finale where the late famous producer Robert Evans is invited by his corporate bosses. Evans was the head of the studio at Paramount, and his corporate, the people who own the studio, the major corporations, they tell him, look, we need to make this. They're trying to make the premiere of The Godfather a big hit. So they tell Kissinger, they tell him to call Henry Kissinger. He says, I know you, the corporate guy says, I know you're cool with Henry Kissinger. Make sure he's at the premiere. When Evans gets on the phone to call Kissinger, Kissinger says, look, I'm busy. I got this war, and in my head, I'm saying, I'm bombing these people. He's like, look, I'm trying to conquer the world. I don't have time to. But Evans says, look, it's really important. We would appreciate it. We would owe you one. The studio would owe you one, and then Kissinger says, I'll see what I can do. So I won't spoil the see, so you can still watch it to see if he shows up or not. But my point was, and is, that little scene to me, these are the little gems that I have to look for and hope for in watching these commercial media products, or that I sometimes feel like are put in there to tease people like me to keep us, on the hook, so to speak, because that to me is a very realistic scene showing, again, the incestuous nature between Hollywood, commercial media, and elite politics and propaganda. Why would it mean something to a Henry Kissinger to have a studio head say, I owe you something? Is he really that much about getting into movies and meeting an actress? Maybe. But isn't it more likely that when he needs a certain scene to go a certain way, or a certain politics to be represented a certain way, or a certain group to be depicted a certain way, wouldn't that be more likely what a Henry Kissinger would have in mind for having a studio head on his debt list, so to speak? The symbiosis there. So that's it. I just thought that was interesting. Just that little scene kind of added a little cherry on top to what I already thought was a great series. But I was like, yeah, of course he would want that. Okay, that's it on that. All right, so I'm watching my actual current favorite white political commentator, R.M. Brown, the other day. So I got to shout him out because he brought up a point in a way that I haven't seen brought up. I don't remember being brought up in a way, and I kind of wanted to just bring to us real quick. So shout out to R.M. Brown. He brings up this point about the gun violence and the Second Amendment. And he actually just encouraged a rereading of the Second Amendment itself, which I admit I have not done in quite a while. I used to walk around with a pocket constitution as part of our activism, just to remind about the 13th Amendment and a couple of other gems in there. But I don't remember a focus on this one. So, and as R.M. Brown said in his own piece, which is very funny and very well done. He says, look, I get it. And obviously and I think many of us here agree. There is a left argument in defense of being armed, of having arms, having access to arms. And there's a legit reason for a politically left community to be armed. And particularly, he didn't mention this, but anyway, I'll leave it there. So I agree with him on that. But at the same time, the broader argument in defense of the right to bear arms and the Second Amendment really doesn't make any sense in 2022 and is often misrepresented. So I think he's right in that we should just read the very short amendment that says that starts with a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So it's in the context of a well-regulated militia. So this whole thing about I should have a right to have a gun for hunting, home defense, or just because the latter half of the amendment says the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, doesn't hold. Because the context is a well-regulated militia. Now, obviously, there's a lot of wiggle room, and a lot of people, obviously, in the legal world have been doing a lot with this, and it goes beyond my expertise, but I thought that was just an interesting point to remind everybody of. A well-regulated militia. Well, what does that mean? It suggests that there's a federal authority that is in charge, that regulates local militias and determines their legality, their training, the scope of probably maybe even their weaponry, et cetera, and so forth, and therefore and allows them to have local citizens to have the right to bear arms and join that militia for the purpose of defending or the security of a free state. So I just thought that was interesting, and I would encourage people to I think you have to be a patron of his to see this particular video. But anyway, I think Aaron Brown is worth the $2 a month I give him, so to be a patron. So anyway, shout out to Aaron Brown. His segment is much more funny. But for my own or our purposes, my argument would be the same in terms of I would advocate that we join the gun owning community in the same way we enter any space, but certainly electoral political spaces. That is, and I'm not saying we enter them armed. I'm saying that we enter them as a pre-organized, educated community looking to defend itself as potentially a free state. All right. Okay. So one more little thing before we get to our guest in the next hour and the real depth of today's program. But going back to the earlier comment from, I believe it was Emma that had put that in there. Oh, I appreciate the super chat. Oh, which is a completely inaccurate take. My bad, McJagermeister. Come back real quick. What's the inaccurate take? Your $2 has earned the right, definitely. Let's see. No, I'm not saying to move off of the illegitimacy of the Constitution. I just thought that was an interesting point. I'm not advocating the Constitution, but I want to make, is that what you're saying I'm doing? That's not my argument. Wait a minute. My bad. That wasn't my intent. I just thought it was interesting in terms of, and maybe I wasn't clear, similar to what Aaron Brown's point is, when the white right in particular make the argument about the right to bear arms, or really anybody at this point makes the right, they do so outside of the context of what they claim to be quoting, because they claim their right to bear arms comes from the Constitution and the Second Amendment. But the Second Amendment is not, I think, interpreted or certainly read or understood. But go ahead. Okay. Oh, so you're saying that are you saying that my interpretation of the Second Amendment is incorrect, or are you saying my reference to the Second Amendment vis-a-vis revolutionaries is on its face false? That I can understand. That's why I started by saying I agree with R.M. Brown in that there is a left argument for why we should have arms. And I am an advocate of that. So anyway, maybe I just wasn't clear. I just thought, anyway. The Second Amendment's language around militia has been upturned. What does that mean? Upturned, upheld, overturned? Anyway, I don't know. The way the English language setup makes a sentence two separate statements. It's talking about the right to form a well-regulated militia and the need for people to have arms. Well, I don't know. I mean, if we're going off the language of the Second Amendment, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it starts off, it's saying, it's the context it's setting. There's only one sentence. A well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed, period. So, I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we're talking past each other, or I left the comment up. So I just let me. But the context I think is pretty clear. Is a well-regulated militia to protect the country from the British is really what they were thinking. Probably they weren't thinking about people having AR-15s in their closet. Oh man. Anyway, look, hey, my fault, everybody. You know, if I'm not being clear, if we just simply disagree, it's all good. But let me get to this one more thing real quick because I think Emma earlier. Oh wow. So we had the trash got collected. Shout out to the trash collectors, and shout out to, is this a street cleaner? Shout out to the street cleaners. It looks like it's like almost like a Zamboni for a street. Right on. Appreciate you. I think Emma said something earlier about the what are the crypto folks doing right now with this collapse. And what I think is interesting is that I honestly don't know. So I don't know what Reggie Middleton is claiming, and or in particular, or the gentleman of crypto. I would encourage folks to go watch our debates on that. I'll put the links in the description below, or they're on our channel. But what I have seen a lot on, for instance, just on Twitter and some of the YouTube spaces are people advocating for calm, for buy the dip. That is buy as the prices are going low, so you can get back up there. So you can you buy low, sell high later, and so there are people advocating that you not lose hope and all this and whatnot, but I'm not getting into that this morning, but I did see this story from the other day that I thought was interesting, and just wanted to come back to, because again, part of the argument of the cryptogandists is that, again, there's anonymity, there's there's anonymity, but yet everything is public because of the blockchain. There's wealth creation, possibilities because everything being public and yet protected, makes it harder for people to get ripped off, and so on and so on and so on. And then, of course, they argue for decentralization and a way to get away from the federal governments and from banks. And yet, as we see here, a former employee of NFT Marketplace charged in first ever digital asset insider trading scheme. The long story short, the Southern District of New York filed charges against Nathaniel Chastain, a former product manager at Ozone Networks, Inc., which DBA or does business as OpenSea, with wire fraud and money laundering in connection with a scheme to commit insider trading in non-fungible tokens or NFTs by using confidential information about what NFTs were going to be featured on OpenSea's homepage for personal financial gain. Of course, OpenSea is the dominant platform and exchange, the centralized exchange location for trading NFTs, who makes money off of every trade of NFTs. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said NFTs might be new, but this type of criminal scheme is not. So again, not that I want to be in agreement with the state and with prosecutors, etc., but I am in agreement to have been advocating all along that none of this is new. And what they're trying to do in all of this blockchain and NFT and crypto space is rebrand old capitalist, and as it's directed at us, old black capitalist arguments for why we don't need political power and why we just need to get our money right. And it's nothing new. And all of the old crimes and schemes, it's just a Ponzi scheme, a hustle, a greater fool theory, whatever you want to call it. All of the hustles combined that have ever existed exist in these spaces. In this case, as alleged, Chastain launched the age-old scheme to commit insider trading by using his knowledge of confidential information to purchase dozens of NFTs in advance of them being featured on OpenSea's homepage. This case concerns insider trading in NFTs on OpenSea, the largest online marketplace for the purchase and sale of NFTs. As part of his employment, Chastain was responsible for selecting NFTs to be featured on OpenSea's homepage. OpenSea kept confidential the identity of featured NFTs until they appeared on its homepage. After an NFT was featured on OpenSea's homepage, the price buyers were willing to pay for that NFT and for other NFTs made by the same NFT creator typically increased substantially. From at least in or about June 2021 to at least in or about September 2021, Chastain used OpenSea's confidential business information about what NFTs were going to be featured on its homepage to secretly purchase dozens of NFTs shortly before they were featured. After those NFTs were featured on OpenSea, Chastain sold them at profits of 2 to 5 times his initial purchase price. To conceal the fraud, Chastain conducted these purchases and sales using anonymous digital currency wallets and anonymous accounts on OpenSea. He is being charged with wire fraud and one count of wire fraud and 1 count of money laundering. So very old schemes and hustles, rebranded in with the new technology and new freedom, liberation giving spaces of cryptocurrency. So, all right, good people. Let me just see. Thank you again, McJagermeister, for your comment and your super chat. Look at Scalia's argument. The musket argument is false. They had machine guns in counter-revolution 1776. Okay. I've heard this argument before. Again, I'm not. Okay. Whatever they had then is not what was technologically available today. And the Second Amendment is clearly being adjusted to defend an enormously overly armed, white, hostile, angry, confused, disturbed community. That's all. That's it. and you know, and I hope, Jägermeister, you're not telling me that I'm revolutionary out of order or out of revolutionary order by referencing the Second Amendment when you're defending your argument with Scalia. I must be confused there, right? I must be missing something there, right? But anyway, good people, we'll leave it there for now. We got our guests coming up. Let's take a very quick break and come back and get into the real business of the day right here at I Mix What I Like. Don't go anywhere. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, everybody, welcome back to I Mix What I Like. Joining me once again is Zizwe Tchiguka, and I hope your camera is not that blurry or can be corrected. An organizer with the All African People's Revolutionary Party here to talk with us about Kwame Ture, the co-founder of that party, and who is one of the proponents and progenitors and early propagators of the call for Black Power, which is commemorated on this date, having 56 years ago in 1966. So, Brother Zizwe, again, good morning, greetings to you. Welcome back to the program. It's good to see you, and it's good that we can actually now see you outside of the blur and with the full AAPRP background. Good morning, greetings.
Revolutionary greetings to you, my brother. Thank you so much for allowing me
to
come.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead. No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So let me turn it over to you and let you, lead us. And I know you got a couple of clips that you wanted me to pull up. I'll start to get them together now.
Yeah.
But why do you think it's important that we commemorate this day and be reminded of the call for Black Power, or as you corrected me and us in the titling of it, the move from Black Power to Pan-Africanism?
Well, it's very important because it was a watershed moment in the struggle to obtain the objective of Pan-Africanism, which we define as the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. We also know that when this objective is achieved, it will, in fact, advance, it will fulfill the aspirations of African people and people of African descent worldwide, and advance the triumph of the socialist revolution and an ongoing progress towards world communism, in which all societies are ordered on each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. And so this moment that happened June 17, 1966 was a very seminal moment, not only for Africans in America, but worldwide, because this event, this particular call spread throughout the world. And Steve Biko mentions that in his speeches and books. The one where he talks about, he says, I write what I like. And I was just wondering, did that have anything to do with the title of this show?
Oh, it had everything to do with it. I'm glad you asked. It had everything to do with it. I Mix What I Like is an absolute direct intended homage to Biko, and I Write What I Like. And when back in the day when we were doing mixtape radio, the use of the rap music mixtape as an emancipatory source of emancipatory journalism, the idea was taken directly from that. We went from, if we're making mixtapes, we're mixing what we like. So the I was never meant to be singular any more than I think it for me at least. And I know the I, even when he wrote what he liked under the pseudonym Frank Talk, that he meant he was writing for us. So anyway, yes, indeed. Sorry for that longer answer, but I'm very happy to have you raise that up. Thank you very much. And while I've interrupted you, just real quick, can you check the settings? Check your settings and make sure it's picking up your headset, because it sounds like your headset is not actually being read by the system. So if you could just real quick,
I got my air conditioner blowing above my head. Maybe I should turn it off.
Okay. Well, now I don't want you to sweatbox yourself, but I just wanted to make sure that the mic was reading your settings were reading your microphone directly, which might help with that. But
is that better?
Anyway, Yeah, the background sound is definitely lower, but I just also, but if you're clear that under the settings and under audio that the mic that you're set to get input from is coming from your headset and not just your computer, that might make it even better. But
yeah, it's supposed to be coming from my headset.
Okay,
then that's probably settings, and I can see this little box where it says microphone, and I see the little dots. You know, I'm kind of technologically challenged.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I appreciate it. In any event, let's continue. So,
Okay. And let me make a diversion real quick.
Sure.
That ad that the ear doctor developed, it's awesome, man. It's awesome.
I'm sorry, say that again.
That ad, that promotion that the ear doctor developed, I like it. I love it.
Right on. I'll make sure if he's not watching, I'll make sure he hears that. But I love it. I try to play it on my show all the time because I think he did a great job too.
Y'all need to quit picking on him about how he pronounced words, because you know what Kwame Ture says. So that's a subconscious way of Africans rebelling against.
I love it. I agree.
The oppressor's language.
What he say? Anybody could speak this simple honky's language.
Yeah. Speaking of merch, you see my shirt.
I do.
This is some of our
period.
Merch. Yeah, in all African People's Revolutionary Party. So, getting back to the topic.
Sure, right on.
We had this event June 17th, 1966, that occurred in Greenwood, Mississippi, in which the former Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, made a speech, the call for Black power, that reverberated around the world. And when he made this speech, what people need to understand is, number one, the masses are the makers of history. It's a very historic event, and it wasn't like he did it by himself. It wasn't like it was a random decision. This was a result of the struggle of the masses of African people in the United States through the organization called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was a production, a result of the masses of Africans in the United States, that is, fighting for what was then the civil rights. And of course, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was started by Sister Ella Baker at a student conference at Shaw University in April of 1960. Of course, this came on the heels of the sit-in movement that was launched February 1st, 1960. So she organized a student conference. And these young people, when she held their student conference, she gave a message. She said, y'all need to start fighting for our rights, and don't let the old people tell you what to do. That was one of the things she told them at that conference. So she took her money, she raised some money that she had and put on that conference. And she was one of the heroines, one of our great sheroes in our struggle for Pan-Africanism worldwide, and specifically here in the Snakes, that launched the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, that eventually developed different programs around the civil rights struggle that led to the call for Black power. Of course, we all know, some of us know, some of the history behind the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee's different programs. It started out as an organization that included some Europeans, Africans, and others. But when Kwame Ture was elected, the former Stokely Carmichael was elected to be the president of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, there was a tectonic shift in the struggle in SNCC, in the civil rights movement, and the Pan-African struggle as a whole. So what happened was, within the overall movement of our people in the SNCCs, within the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, there were elements who wanted to take more radical action, especially because of the influence of El Haj Malik El Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X, also known as Omawali X Shabazz, which most people have no clue about. So that influence that he had on the youth. In fact, if you read his autobiography, he had a meeting with the youth, March 26, 1964, I believe it was, in Dr. King's church. That was Malcolm X. They had an underground coalition they formed. And when he went to the church to speak to the youth of a coalition called COFO, Coalition of, I forget what the F is, Federated Organizations. That was in 1964. So Dr. King was in jail at that time, and he was greeted with by Coretta Scott King. And that movie sadly makes a mockery of that whole that visit that Malcolm X made to the church. So fast forward to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, having these different programs like Freedom Summer in 1964, which was an astounding program where they went to the southern states in the United States to register our people to vote, because at that time they put their efforts into electoral politics. And then later on, the former Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, was assigned to build the first Black Panther Party in Lowndes County, Alabama. I know our comrade Muhammad Ahmad talks about formations called Black Panther, even earlier than that. And even they say some people in the Africans who fought World War II, they called some of them Black Panthers. But this particular organization in Lowndes County was the progenitor to the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense eventually, because they sent one of their comrades to get permission to call themselves the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and they utilized the symbol of the Black Panther Party. So anyway, this was one of the things that the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee assigned the former Stokely Carmichael to do in Lowndes County, Alabama, to build the Lowndes County Freedom Organization in Lowndes County, Alabama. And those folks in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they were armed. They were armed. And I'm sure you all had it on your show before when you talked about even Dr. King had a gun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in all practical reality, they were under terrorist attacks from these fascist forces, the FBI, in collusion with the Ku Klux Klan and other government agencies, all state-sponsored terrorism. And so they began to defend themselves. And we also know about what was the group that defended Dr. King?
The Deacons for Self-Defense.
Deacons for Self-Defense. So, you know, people need to know all this history and understand that although Dr. King's message was for nonviolence, he wasn't no fool. He knew he had to defend himself. And so the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee did these programs that laid the groundwork to eventually lead to the calling for Black Power on June 16, 1966. June 17, 1966, by Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. So now, after they had built that Lowndes County Freedom Organization, they also built the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in Mississippi with Fannie Lou Hamer. And they had a slogan called Freedom Now. That was their slogan. So when the former Stokely Carmichael was elected president in May of 1966. And this struggle, this contentious struggle between the youth who were more radical versus those youth who were identified with the nonviolent actions and program of Dr. King, such as John Lewis. When Kwame Ture was elected president, it made a dramatic shift in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He called for all the Europeans and Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to leave the organization. So that was him, Cleve Sellers, the former H. Rap Brown, also known as Jalil Alameen, Sekou Chico Neblet. I want to shout out him. His birthday was just on the 12th, I believe it was. You know, this month is chock full of historic events and birthdays and stuff. You know, that's why you're correct when you talk about African history is every day. African Liberation Day is every day.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, every month has every you know,
it's chock full every month, every day.
Yeah.
Like you all talked about Tupac's birthday yesterday. What was his name? Jesse, the young man, Jesse Stinney was executed by these terrorist forces here in the Snakes at the age of 14 in the electric chair.
Yeah,
Stuff
I don't
like
remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah, Kalanji brought that up.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, anyway, yeah, I could be sitting right there, might not remember, but yeah, there's
no problem. A whole lot of other stuff happened. Of course, the great Che Guevara's birthday was the 14th.
Oh, right. Wow.
Yeah. So just kind of a divergence. So anyway, leading up to June 17th, 1966, the revolutionary forces took control of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the personality of the former Stokely Carmichael as president in May of 1966. So here we go. The next month, they kicked the Europeans out, you know, because the basic reason was because they said that when they were organizing in the southern states for people to register to vote, the Africans would tend to listen to the Europeans and as opposed to the African organizers more so because of that mentality, you know, that slave mentality, the white superiority complex. So they said, we want to organize in our community. You go organize in your community. You organizing Europeans in your community against racism. So what happened was James Meredith, who had integrated the University of Mississippi in 1962 and had graduated, he decided in 1966 to march by himself to further integrate the University of Mississippi, right? In Jackson, I believe it is. And so in that march, some European terrorists shot him. I'm sure he didn't do that as an act alone. It probably was an organized thing, you know. So he sniped and shot James Meredith. He didn't die. A couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks before, June 3rd, 4th. And so the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, along with a coalition of organizations, decided to complete what was called the March Against Fear. So if you could show that clip at this point, that could give us some context about what all this rambling I did about what happened.
Absolutely. So this is the Fallout clip, because I'm assuming that's the one. Let's see.
That's the one from Eyes on the Prize where it shows the lead up
right
to
here, right?
Yeah.
I'm tired of violence. I've seen too much of it. I've seen hate on the faces of too many sheriffs in the South. And I'm not going to let my oppressor dictate to me what method I must use.
SNCC planned to issue a dramatic call as the march approached Greenwood, Mississippi.
Willie Ricks was sent out as head as the advanced scouts, and sometimes he could have as many as 20 to 40, and as we grew bigger, even 20 or 40 people under his direction to spread out. And his task was to take them, spread them out to plantations, speak to the sharecroppers, tell them the march was coming through, but to throw out Black Power and to give little Black Power speeches to get the reaction. I think about 3 nights before Greenwood, because SNCC was decided where's the best place for us to launch it. About 3 nights before Greenwood, I remember about 2 o'clock in the morning, Ricks came back and he was giving a report, and Cleve Sellers was sitting next to me, I remember. And Ricks was saying, we ought to drop it now. The people are ready for it. He said, I said it the other day, and they dropped their hose, you know.
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?
Ricks had everybody primed. He said, just get to your speech. We're going against freedom now. We're going for Black Power. Don't hit too much on freedom now, but hit the need for power. So we built up on the need for power. And just when I got there, before I got it, Ricks was there saying, hit him now, hit him now. I kept saying, give me time, give me time. When we finally got him, we dropped it, Black Power. Of course, they had been primed and they responded immediately. But I myself, to be honest, I didn't expect that enthusiastic response.
We want Black Power. We want Black Power. We want Black Power. What do you want? What do you want? Everybody, what do you want? We want Black Power. We want Black Power. That's what we gonna get.
Until finally everyone together was thundering, Black Power, Black Power. And that was chilling, that was frightening.
It scared people because they did not understand they could not subtract violence from power. They could only see power as a violent instrument accompanying it.
Empty rhetoric. It was not a message. And the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee had a rich history of being involved in programmatic efforts and not just the use of slogans. It was at that point, during that march, that I made a decision to leave the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
The cause of Black equality will be decided by Black people.
The media saw the call for Black Power as a major shift in the civil rights movement.
There was a tendency, I thought, to overplay it. There were a lot of new reporters who were new to this beat, who were coming in from a lot of papers around the country as the march began to pick up momentum and as this Black Power theme began to get some publicity. The second reason was that the theme was never really clearly articulated, or at least what it meant was never clearly defined. And so it was open to very broad interpretations, and there were some whites, for their own reasons, who wanted to take this as a signal of real Black hostility and enmity.
And the strategy coming out of Black Power from SNCC was that Blacks should organize with Blacks and whites should organize with whites.
SNCC took the position that if there was going to be a march in Mississippi, it should be a march that's indigenous, meaning that Mississippians should be involved, and we should not call out the liberal armies from the north to come in and assist with that march.
So we moved on to work with whites on issues that we felt we should work with. In the next year, that was not civil rights, that was Vietnam.
That's it.
Yes.
Just very quickly, if I can, that clip of Ture on Face the Nation, I think it's clips like that that continue to confuse people of today into thinking that the Black activist spokespeople invited to those commercial media spaces have those same politics and are that same legitimate form of leadership, whereas and have lost sight of the fact that today's media environment, for all of its flaws, wouldn't even ever have done that. You would never see today's Ture's, Huey Newton's, Angela Davis's of that day, as opposed to the Angela Davis of today. You wouldn't see those people in today's media environment. But anyway, that said, please go ahead.
Yeah, but you're correct, because the enemy learned their lesson back then. One of the speeches that I was looking at about Kwame Ture was that in the 60s, the FBI was spying on a few after what they did during the Black Power movement, and they also the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was the first ones to came out against the draft.
Mm-hmm.
In 1967, as early as 1967, they talked about smashing the draft. They said, hell no, we ain't going, which was anglicized into hell no, we won't go.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, they made sure they put spies on every campus, every college campus, because the anti-war movement started gaining steam, of course, even before 67. But when they called for smashing the draft, and the Europeans on these campuses began to burn the ROTCs, you know what that is. I forget what the acronym means, but it's the military program they had on these college campuses.
Recruit officer training,
yeah,
corps, something like that.
Something like that. Now they're trying to reinstitute that, you know. Y'all remember you spoke.
Oh, it's big. It's big. I mean, it's big in high schools. It's big on HBCUs.
HBCUs, you know. So after the call for smash the draft and Black Power, they put spies on every campus ever since. So anyway, getting back to the issue at hand, that speech that Kwame Ture made was able to be done because, one hand, the Dr. King, who they used to call him the Lord, by the way. And you know, Dr. King served a purpose in this whole Pan-African movement. You know, we had programs where we talk about Dr. King's contribution to Pan-Africanism also. So one day we'll talk about that.
Sure.
As we all know, he was there in 1957, at Ghana's Independence Day, March 6, 1957.
I know, but my joke is he definitely is undercredited with his radicalism in general. But my joke about that moment is that when you see the pictures of King at Nkrumah's inauguration, you see Nixon right behind him.
Yeah, I remember you said that before. I remember you said that.
I can't help it. It's like it's a terrible image that's just burned in my head. It's like, damn it. Just as a reminder. And, we watch it too, fool. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
And I remember I mentioned to you that King wrote a speech called Birth of a Nation, which was referring to the independence of Ghana. So that particular day, that day before that speech, Dr. King was called to go to Jackson, Mississippi to do an interview with Meet the Press. So this gave Kwame Ture, the former Stokely Carmichael, the opportunity to elaborate extensively on the need for Black power. And of course, shout out to Comrade Mukasa Willie Ricks Dada for doing the groundwork. As Kwame Ture admits, he did all the priming of the people, along with other comrades in SNCC, of course. You know, it was a program. It wasn't some random thing, and that's what people need to understand. This was mass organization at work. This was Pan-Africanism in the SNCC, in the form of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, calling for Black power. So
even in the clip we played, it contradicts John Lewis's claims about it just being a slogan.
Yes, exactly.
Even in that clip, they were saying they were responding to the vibe of the people. They were trying to advance the struggle. They clearly had they were expanding radically politically. So, I mean, you know, so John Lewis, you know, I mean, it's just.
Well, he was one of the followers of the King.
But not even the real King.
Not the
he was like a
part.
follower of the mythological McDonaldized king, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
He's not,
sanitized king.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you know, when John Lewis passed away, that racist terrorist pig Bill Clinton had the nerve. You heard what he said. Well, when John Lewis was taking SNCC in the right direction, and he got defeated by Stokely Carmichael or some other mess, he said.
He called him out. He did call him out of his name. He didn't call him Ture, but he did refer. He brought up Stokely Carmichael again, even in death. the symbol is too strong. You know, that's how I took that. It was like, until he's gonna haunt this evil ghost of a man himself. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's gonna haunt the Clinton world, even in death, and make you call him out to juxtapose against the also now dead John Lewis. I mean, I thought it was a very powerful moment that you're calling up here. Yeah, anyway.
So after Kwame Ture made this great speech, in the clip you saw where he had to defend the concept of Black Power, and he went on a worldwide tour. He went to several places around the world where people just love what he did. And of course, all over the United States, Africans rose up. And they embraced the concept of Black Power, especially the young people, as you see in the clip. The young people was like, it's about time. You know, they've been hankering for something like that. And let me stress this part too. Kwame Ture wasn't the first one to call for Black Power. There was people like Richard Wright. I think he wrote about it in some of his books. Adam Clayton Powell had talked about Black Power. But, you know, there's a saying that it's the idea whose time has come. And he just, SNCC as a whole chose the right moment to launch the call for Black Power as opposed to Freedom Now within the civil rights movement struggle.
There's also there's a political difference, but I think there's also an aesthetic, sort of a stylized difference between Powell, Richard Wright, and Kwame Ture also. That when Ture was saying it, especially as he had more time to lay out the project, and those of the AAPRP kind of politics laid out the project, it was very different from Richard Wright, very different from Clayton Powell. And again, politically, but also in that vibe. There's something about that vibe that Ture brought with it that, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like, it's, you know, there's Black Power, and then there's Black Power, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like,
he further expanded on what was laid out before. He further expanded on it and clarified it. And of course, he was a very good speaker and student of philosophy, and he could lay it out from step A to Z and all the epistemological aspects of it. And so he had to go around the country, like when he was on that clip at Meet the Press, explaining to them. And he was doing speeches where he said, like, we define what Black Power is, not our enemy, basically. So we don't care what these, and he would use the term hunky, you know, whatever the hunky said, this, that, and other, we don't care about that. But eventually, in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the organization was destroyed. They put Kwame out of that leadership position. But guess who they put in his place? The former H. Rap Brown.
Out the frying pan into the fire.
Into the fire, man. And you know how H. Rap Brown, the former H. Rap Brown, Jaleel Al-Abdi, you know, give respect to him. All the
same thing. He still creates a vibe that terrifies, and you know, so again, Kwame Ture was already gone physically, but Jamil Al-Amin is still here, and that same vibe got the same response from the state. Bill Clinton shouts out negatively Ture. The state literally grabs up Al-Amin. You know, as he said himself, like the statute of limitations on liberation never run out. So it's so anyway.
So move right along. He was projected to international prominence. He went to Cuba, he went to China, went to Vietnam, and all the people in those countries who had liberated themselves welcomed him with open arms. In fact, Castro said, if they harm a hair on his head, we're going to start a fight. And then, of course, he met with Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad was telling him, look, The devil's gonna get you. He said, yeah, well, I know they're gonna get me. You know, you need to have some protection. Yeah. Or you need this, that, and the other. You know, I ain't got time. I'm busy. So on and so forth. He said, son, I ain't asking you. I'm telling you. We're going to assign the FOI to protect you wherever you go. And so the Nation of Islam, wherever he spoke at, within their reach, FOI was there, protecting Kwame Ture. So he had Castro, they had China, the Vietnamese. He was in there with Ho Chi Minh and those folks in Vietnam. And by the time 67, you know, the Black Panther Party was founded in October 1966. So he goes on this tour. And by the time 67 rolls around, they have basically destroyed the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. By the way, they changed the name from Student Nonviolent to Student National Coordinating Committee in that process between when Kwame was president and when it was destroyed. And so the Zionists came out full force and supported by the United States terrorist government to destroy the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Because number one, Zionists was the ones who sponsored SCLC, and they also had the apparatus of the government to help aid in that destruction process. You know, spying on the people. They had this short list with Malcolm X #1. They eliminated him in 65. They had Dr. King on the Elijah Muhammad next, Dr. King, and then Stokely Carmichael on that short list to assassinate. So they got to all of them. Elijah Muhammad was already ill. He passed away. And they killed Dr. King in 68. And as we know, April 4th, after he made that speech beyond Vietnam. So I want to tie this into Pan-Africanism. Get to that before we run out of time, of course. So Kwame Ture is going to different places, and he moves to Conakry, Guinea, right? 1967, that's what some comrades say. And in 1968, when he married Miriam Makeba, who was in exile from apartheid in South Africa in Conakry, Guinea, they hooked up, and they lived in, they moved to Conakry, Guinea in 68. And Kwame Ture, before he was Kwame Ture, then Stokely Carmichael, was introduced to Kwame Nkrumah by Shirley Graham Du Bois. So here we have Pan-Africanism at work. The Black Power struggle that emerged victorious in the United States influenced people around the world. Kwame Ture moves to Conakry, Guinea. He begins to work with Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and Ahmed Sekou Touré, two of the giants of the revolutionary Pan-African movement. At the same time, here comes the youth in South Africa, where what we call occupied Azania. They study what's going on in the United States. And what's going on there is, in 1960, you had what was called the Sharpsville Massacre, whereby the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania led what was called a pass law campaign. You know, they have these passes that people had to carry with them in occupied Azania, also known as South Africa, to even to go into the cities to work for Europeans in Azania. And if they didn't have a pass, they could be arrested, killed, or whatever. They started this pass law thing in the 40s, 1940s maybe, in Azania, occupied Azania. And so Africans there had been fighting against that. The African National Congress was the preeminent organization from 1912 up to the late 40s. 1949, they decided to scrap the land reform program. And that's when the faction that you call the Africanists, those folks who wanted to get the land back, were organized themselves to break away from the African National Congress. They say ANC broke away from them because when they had their conference and they abandoned the land reform program, Nelson Mandela went with the faction that abandoned the land reform program, by the way. When 1955 rolls around, they produced what is called the Freedom Charter. First resolution says the land belongs to all those who live on it, including the European settlers, the people they forced to come from India, the Chinese, anybody, all people. It all belongs to all them people, not Africans. That's the first resolution. Anybody can go to it, Google it. So in 1959, the Africanist factions, which was primarily the African Youth League, led by Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe, formed what was called the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. So this group was the one who led this particular pass law campaign in 1960 against the pass laws. They told the apartheid administration they were going to protest by coming to the police stations. They warned them. They told them in advance, we're going to do this. So it's going to be nonviolent. Well, we're going to burn these passes. And so when they did that, thousands of Africans go to the police station in Soweto, in Sharpeville, and in Langa province. And the police start firing on them. Killed 61 people immediately and wounded hundreds. So after that happened, all the liberation parties were banned. At that time, you had primarily the Pan-Africanist Congress and the African National Congress of South Africa. So they were banned in 1960, which was also contradictorily called by the New York Times and all these racist terrorist pigs, the Year of Africa, because of the Pan-African movement in Africa, you had the independence of 17 nation states in Africa in 1960, right? And this was a result of the Fifth Pan-African Congress that took place in Manchester, England in 1945, the push for that. And then the independence of Ghana in 57, and the All African People Conferences that took place in Ghana in 1958, April and December. That push led to the independence of these nations in 1960, the Year of Africa, the same year in which Patrice Lumumba was overthrown, the same year of Sharpeville Massacre, March 21st, 1960. So between 1960 and 1976, they were being harassed, intimidated, crushed. And then when these students organized themselves and they continued to fight against the use of the language called Afrikaans, which was a combination of Boer language and African indigenous language in the school systems, as opposed to using English as a standard language in the schools, the students were rebelling against that for a few years. And in 1976, they were planning different kinds of demonstrations. One of the elders, by the name of Zephaniah Mathopane, also known as Uncle Zeph, he was a member of the Pan-Africanist Congress, did time in Robben Island, which is the famous prison in South Africa, where they sent a lot of the political prisoners to, like Mandela, like Robert Sobukwe, who had his own prison cell in a house, separated from everybody else. They didn't want him to be able to influence none of the other political prisoners, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas Mandela, he was able to influence the other political prisoners where he was. They called it Mandela University. So anyway, these youth began to organize themselves and rebel against the teaching of Afrikaans. And in 1976, they planned this demonstration against the teaching of Afrikaans in the early part of June of 1976 that evolved into a gigantic mass demonstration at what is called Isaac Morrison High School in Soweto, with the help of the elders who helped them plan it at a church called Regina Mundi Catholic Church in Soweto. So they had these series of meetings, and of course, Steve Biko at that time was a young man who was on the rise in the Black consciousness movement. That he specifically said they got the inspiration from the Black Power movement of the United States under the leadership of Stokely Carmichael. Right. So these students, being inspired by the what was called the South African Student Movement, that was one of the front organizations that was created, so that the organizations that were banned, the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, the African National Congress, South Africa, they were banned from any political activity. So these youth created other organizations to use to express themselves in rebellion against apartheid, settler colonialism. And so this South African student movement, Biko was elected president of it. And this young man, his last name is Mashinini, he was the leader of the rebellion, the demonstration that started at this high school. And they went and marched, and the police attacked and killed so many of the students. And that's what led to the Soweto rebellion. That was very large and very strong and powerful. And this opened the floodgates in occupied Azania, South Africa, so that there was so much political activity, so much rebellion. Millions of students fled the country and began to join the ranks of the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, in exile, where they received training by the government of Libya, the government of Guinea, Conakry, with the help of Kwame Nkrumah, Algerian government, Chinese, Soviet Union, all these governments began to arm and train these youth so that when they went back and infiltrated into South Africa, they began to wage an armed struggle that opened the door for the eventual independence, because occupied Azania, South Africa, is still not liberated to this day. What they did was they, in my opinion, they sabotaged the revolution by establishing a neo-colonial puppet government that's there to this day. So Kwame Ture made his tours through occupied Azania in South Africa. He did a speech in 1996 in honor of Steve Biko, September, because they killed him September 12th, 1977. So he went there to visit. And of course, when he married Miriam Makeba, he automatically began to link up with the Pan-Africanist Congress. He lived in Africa, of course, from 68, where the Democratic Party of Guinea, with Kwame Nkrumah, the Party for African Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, under the leadership of Amilcar Cabral. And, you know, Ghana was the base, the fountainhead of Pan-Africanism, when they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah in 1966, by the way, in February 24th, just before the call for Black Power. So now all of these guys was in Guinea-Conakry at the same time, because the base for the PIGC was in Guinea-Conakry. You know, Guinea-Conakry had attained independence October 2nd, 1958. So when they overthrew Patrice Lumumba, 1960, they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah in 1966. They overthrew Modibo Keita of Mali. The enemy was on the offensive to reverse Pan-Africanism, right? The initial one was the overthrow of Patrice Lumumba in 1960. So they were on the offensive to reverse the gains of Pan-Africanism. There was a Ghana-Guinea-Mali union that was supposed to be the nucleus of the United States of Africa. So that's why they assassinated Modibo Keita. They broke that union up, and By the way, Lumumba had signed a secret agreement August the 8th, 1960, to join with Ghana, Guinea, and Mali to become part of that nucleus of the United States of Africa. So the enemy decided to make some moves. They had to reverse it with the the arrest of Patrice Lumumba and the eventual assassination and the overthrow of those folks I talked about, Kwame Nkrumah, assassination, Modibo Keita. So here we had Guinea-Conakry, the last remaining liberated zone at that point. That was the base for all these other liberation movements and freedom fighters. Oh, I forgot Algeria. Algeria was a base also at that time. And they definitely supported a lot of the liberation freedom fighters and organizations throughout Africa and the world. The Black Panther Party had a branch there, as we know. So that's a sort of a summary of what happened that showed the links between what has happened in Africa and what happened in the United States, and how Kwame Ture played a role, following in the footsteps of Malcolm X, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Shirley Graham Du Bois, Ella Baker, Marcus Garvey, because Malcolm had tried to do what Kwame Ture was eventually assigned to do, which was to build mass organization to link the struggles of Africans and the snakes, the struggles of Africans in Africa, when he met with Kwame Nkrumah in 1964. When he went on that tour through Africa, said the most important part of my trip was when I was with the revolutionaries in Africa. If we read all the biography, most folks always focus on when he went to Mecca, but he said the most important part was meeting with the revolutionaries in Africa. So when he came back to the snakes, Kwame Nkrumah had warned him. He said, look, the CIA and the FBI are going to try to kill you because of they had the intelligence. And you can stay in Africa if you want to. He said, no, I got to go and do this work. I promise to do this work with the people. And that's when he created the Organization of African American Unity, June 28, 1964, in Africa, first branch. So when he came back to the snakes, that was the linkage of Pan-Africanism that had evolved from what Garvey was doing, what Du Bois was doing, to the point where Malcolm X had created the OAU to be the sister organization to the OAU. And then here comes Kwame Ture when he called for Black Power, and he moves to Guinea-Conakry, and he begins to further that link because he was given the assignment to build the All African People's Revolutionary Party, in which the first work study circle was started in Conakry, Guinea. It included Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, Kwame Ture, Lamine Janga, and I believe who else was in that group? Amilcar Cabral, I'm sorry, Ahmed Sekou Touré maybe. Amilcar Cabral, of course, was a part of that whole scenario. And the Portuguese tried, along with the other imperialists, they tried to invade and kill all of them November 22nd, 1970. So I'll stop there. We got a few minutes left. Any questions you want to ask me for clarification?
Well, not necessarily, although there's plenty to raise here. And if there's anybody in the chat that wants to raise a quick question or comment for Brother Zizwe, please do so. But I know you also had a clip. There was another clip from the president of Azapo. Did you want to run that real quick?
Yes, please show that. They had their program yesterday in honor of those students who sacrificed their lives June 16th, 1976.
If there was a day that reminds us that our freedom was not free, that our freedom was nourished by the blood of our Azanian martyrs, that day would be June 16, 1976. On that very same day, the apartheid regime unleashed brute force, killing and mowing down more than 700 unarmed Black children. It is in this context that Azapo, the custodian of Black consciousness philosophy, which is the philosophy that inspired the 1976 generation, will be holding a commemoration service to honor the courageous and brave young people who paid the ultimate price.
See that? See that?
Indian people could be free. I invite all of you in your numbers, in your multitudes, to attend our national rally, which will be held at the iconic Regina Mundi in Rockville, in Soweto. That rally, that commemoration service to ensure that we do not forget of the sacrifices of our martyrs will be held at 11 o'clock.
Jay, do me a favor and go back and show that tombstone.
All right, hold on a second.
On that clip. Did you notice it?
No. Where are we talking about? Let's see. Let's see. When did it come up?
Much earlier.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Look at that. If you could get a shot of that, look at, what does that say right there? Right there in the middle.
Black Power Movement.
Hey, thank you very much.
I can't read the text below. I don't know. But it definitely says Black Power Movement.
Yeah, it's a direct connection with the Black Power movement in the Snakes that was called for by Kwame Ture, Mukasa, and the other students of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
You know what? I would like to find the text and be able to see what it says beneath that. I'll look for that another time.
Yeah, there's some other videos you can look at. Just Google Zappo. They got a ton of videos from that program yesterday.
So there were a couple things, just looking real quick. Did you ever meet Walter Rodney or know of his correspondence with Kwame Ture?
Myself, no, I never met Walter Rodney. And I didn't know they had correspondence, so that's a good question.
Okay. Kwame Ture's position on Marxist-Leninism.
He does a speech on that. We have documents on that one. And one of the things he says about Marxism-Leninism is that Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Touré, they were the first ones to make a break from the traditional Marxist-Leninist ideological strain. He correctly says that scientific socialism, Marxism-Leninism is an ideology that emerged in the European struggle, in the European culture. And our ideology has to spring from our culture and our struggle against oppression. So therefore, we are Nkrumahist Toureist. Nkrumahist Toureist, the ideology that is based on the writings and teachings and organizational experiences of Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah and Akbe Sekou Touré. And if anyone noticed, Kwame Touré's name was taken from those two giants.
Is that a cowrie shell necklace, Brother Zizwe?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
All right. Very good. I think that's it specific to our conversation here. And
we could talk so much more.
Yeah, let me just ask one closing question for you, and then add in any other remarks that you would want to. But you said a moment ago that Kwame Ture had been assigned to go out, and earlier you talked about that even at the initial 66 sort of launch of the phrase, that Kwame Ture even then was speaking as an organized mouthpiece of other people and an organization. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because to me, in this particular moment, I think many of us have lost sight of the spokesperson as representing an organized position of an organization, as opposed to an individual pundit, author, academic,
right.
so on and so forth. So could you talk a little bit about when he was assigned to go out and do this work? What does that mean? And anything else about that context you'd like to give? Yeah,
Kwame Ture, even as the former Stokely Carmichael, was always advocate of organized action, mass organized action. Even in high school, he was a member of an organization, even then, some kind of Marxist-Leninist organization. So when he became a college student and joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, everything they did was collective. They had serious discussions and serious decisions that were made as a collective. And when that party was destroyed, the SNCC party, and he joined the Black Panther Party, is another organization. So he didn't do anything without being involved in a collective organization, structure, discussion. When he moved to Africa, he joins with the People's Democratic Party of Guinea, and with Kwame Nkrumah and Akhenaten Sekou Toure and Amilcar Cabral. They had collective discussions, even when they decided to build the All-African People's Revolutionary Party and give him that assignment. And also the eventual necessity to build the All-African Committee for Political Coordination, the All-African People's Revolutionary Army. All that stuff came out of the mass movement of African people through the several Pan-African Congresses, the fifth Pan-African Congress, which was the seminal one, in which you had all these giants together in Manchester, England, including Paul Robeson, Nnamdi Azikiwe, all these people, the top revolutionary intelligentsia. So this is what happened. And so anything he did was not an individual decision. All of that was a result of collective mass action. And he was just a spokesperson who had the speaking ability. And we have all kinds of people who were speaking, but he was one of the most well-known personalities because of his call for Black power.
Right on. Well, Brother Zizwe, I really appreciate you coming through. I know we have plans for you to return to do more of this work. And you and the AAPRP are always welcome here anytime. So until the next time, I really appreciate you coming through.
Pleasure's all mine.
Free the land, ready for the revolution. All
East
that
way
good stuff.
too.
That's right.
Africa is the response. Africa. East way laid too. That's what they say in an occupied Tanzania.
That's right. Right.
African.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Jared.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
And
Talk to you soon.
And the BPM family. Tell them I said thank you. Ready for revolution.
There you are. You told them yourself, but yes, indeed. Right. Thank you very much. Next time. Till next time. Talk to you soon. Take care.
You too.
All right. All right, everybody. Big shout out to Brother Zizwe for coming through. An even bigger shout out, if that's possible, to the AAPRP, All African People's Revolutionary Party. A number of you have raised this this very point, and yes, he is coming back. We do have stuff planned and more in the works to commemorate a number of individuals and party-related politics and histories, et cetera, and so forth. With Brother Zizwe specifically and others as well. So definitely stay tuned. Make sure you have, make sure you've joined and liked and shared and hit that bell so you don't miss any the notifications for when we're coming back with stuff, so that nobody misses Brother Zizwe's next visit or anything else. Just very quickly, big shout out to Melanin Rich Nay. Thank you very much for getting some of those t-shirts for your daughter. I really appreciate that. We do now have women's fit and smaller sizes available, so definitely grab that, and thank you very much for doing so. Pittsburgh Dude 87, yes. So I've actually talked a little bit about this, and on a previous interview with Dr. Frank Wilderson, this came up, this specific film, in talking about specifically in the context of talking about Nelson Mandela, the freedom struggle in Tanzania, and the juxtaposition in particular between Nelson Mandela and Chris Hani. And as I remember it and make use of that conversation, the point is that just as Chris Hani had to be assassinated to let Nelson Mandela's version of post-apartheid South Africa evolve, Max Julian had to be killed at the end of Uptight as the Black revolutionary to come back a couple of years later as a pimp in the Mac. So now Frank Wilderson has a whole other thing about the film Uptight, but I have seen Uptight. It's very good. And I know I just spoiled it for those who haven't seen it, but that spoil is worth it, I think, because, and even predictable given the politics. So anyway, apologies for that. If anybody had, anyway, but anyway, it's a point I've made before. So anyway, and big shout out to Ali Cologne. Thank you very much for the super chat, supporting the channel. Really appreciate you, and encourage others to do the same. Thank you very much for that love and support. Again, I'm not judging the movie. I'm not even judging Max Julian, but I am saying that the Mac is a very different character than the lead in Uptight that he also played. So definitely you got to see that. Yeah, I know I did, my bad, but I had already said that before, but anyway, I did, my bad. It's still worth it. Go watch it. Anyway, that said, again, thanks everybody for coming through. I hope everybody did get a lot of, I saw somebody raise this in the chat too. I hope that we heard the gems given today, and got that message. And if not, I hope you got this one. And we'll catch you next time here at Black Power Media and I Mix What I Like. Again, like, share, subscribe, join, membership, all of that good stuff. Put this in your socials. Make sure everybody else gets to enjoy this good boom bap breakfast. Because if not, you don't want to do that. Because then I have to get upset. And you don't want me looking at you like that or doing that. So make sure you support the show and the channel, and we'll catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like. Peace, everybody. Like Fred Hampton used to say, only if you're willing to fight for it. Peace. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
Let me show these suckers how to ball out here. Oh, man, let me get this together here. Oh, layup. Oh, no. Shot. Oh, three. Oh, it's like Brick City out here. Mid-range. Oh, my goodness. I can't buy a bucket out here. I missed the whole damn basket. Oh, my goodness. What's going on, man? My game is looking trash. Oh, here we go. Black Power Media shirt. Now we cooking. Tree. I'm taking on Ture, y'all, with these right here. Between the legs. Oh, my goodness. Behind the back. Layup. Oh, did he just do a reverse? He is in beast mode out here. I ain't got to look. It's falling. Oh, my goodness. This guy is going 3, 2, 1. Kobe. Nice. Black Power Media, baby. Nice. Empower yourself. Go get you some of that Black Power Media again. Right here, blackpowermedia.org. Yeah.